Do you have that sharp stabbing pain in your heel during those first few steps in the morning? Well, this is one of the most common orthopedic complaints, yet it is one of the most misunderstood condition. If you've been told just to rest, ice and wear soft cushions, probably you're just treating the symptoms and not the condition. So today we are going to look at why these passive treatments fail and it just gives you a temporary relief, and how can we move with the latest clinical research towards more active form of the treatment which will help in healing your tissue from inside out. We are moving towards more permanent and resilient solution. So what exactly is plantar fasciitis? To understand, we have to look at the anatomy of the foot. The plantar fascia is a thick fibrous band of connective tissue that runs across the bottom of your foot, connecting the base of your heel to the toes. Think of it as a high tension shock absorber that supports your arch of your foot every time you take a step. Now, when we talk about the suffix fasciitis, what does it imply? It implies inflammation, like an inflammation around your foot. For decades, the standard treatment for that inflammation was ice and anti-inflammatories and rest until the inflammation settles down. But the science has moved on. If you look at this landmark study from Lemont et al. In 2003, when they examined the chronic cases under the microscope, they found something very interesting. There were no inflammatory cells at all in the around the plantar fascia. There was more of a mucoid degeneration and disorganization of the collagen fibers, which led to an increase in micro tears. That's why the new term plantar fasciopathy instead of plantar fasciitis. So, who is the most at risk? While anyone can develop this condition, we see a very specific pattern with the clinical data. The athletes who suddenly increase their walking or running volume, your fascia simply does not have time to adapt to the new demand and it starts to fail. Or a person who spends most of his time at desk or has a sedentary lifestyle, in that case, the fascia becomes deconditioned, making even a normal walk a high load event for the tissue that has lost its strength. Beyond these activity levels, there are three other key groups which the research identifies. We will divide them based on age and gender. So, in age, we see a peak incidence in adults aged from 40 to 60. It is statistically more common in females. This is due to collagen quality as we age and hormonal shifts that affect the ligament laxity. One more group would be body mass index. So, research by Riedel et al. In 2003 shows that individuals with a BMI of over 30 have 3 times more risk of developing plantar fasciitis because the amount of vertical force on the arch with every single step increases. People who wear flat, unsupportive footwear for long hours, the forces on the fascia works up to a maximum limit constantly without any mechanical help from the shoes. So that's why this group is also at a very high risk. So in all these groups, there is one more thing which is in common, usually which is found in common, is stiff ankles and weak calves. If you have a limited dorsiflexion, you're forced to overpronate your foot and move forward. This creates a massive bowstring tension on the plantar fascia, eventually leading to those structural changes which we've discussed previously. So now before we move on to rehab, we need to understand why we are choosing specific exercises and why does the evidence suggests specific exercises. We need to understand the mechanical miracle of our foot, the windlass mechanism. So the windlass mechanism, think of your plantar fascia as a strong string and your big toe as a lever. So when you step, your big toe bends upward and the movement is called an extension around the toe. So it acts like a lever and it pulls the string tightens up and automatically pulls your heel closer to your toes. You might see in this image above that the arch is coming closer to the toe. So due to which you can push off from the ground and it can create the power for you to push off of the ground. So now if your toes are stiff or your fascia is weak, this locking in does not happen and your foot stays soft and your arch will collapse. The fascia gets overstretched. So our rehab or the research suggests that the rehab is specifically around to strengthen the string and to build up that tension again so that it can support your weight while you're walking. Rehabilitating your plantar fascia is not a sprint. It's a complete rebuilding process. Based on the work of Ratliff and Reel, Ratliff in 2014 and Reel in 2023, we are not trying to stop the pain, but to increase the maximum loading capacity of your foot. We use the specific tool called modified heel raises. This is suggested by Ratliff. So you place a roll towel under the toes of the affected foot on the edge of the step. The towel ensures that your toes are extended and engaging the windlass mechanism, which we've discussed previously. So this will help in placing a therapeutic load on the fascia, and then you perform the calf raises. So in phase 1, which would last from week 1 to week 2, your goal is to build the tolerance and to unlock your stiff ankles. You would do 3 sets of 12 every 2 days of the modified calf raises, and you'll do ankle mobilization by driving your knee towards the wall, keeping your heel flat. If it is too painful to do it on one leg, you can do it with standing on both the legs. In the second phase, this is a progressive overload phase which lasts from 3 to 4 weeks. Your goal is structural adaptation and to build up your calf and soleus power. You will do 3 sets of 10, but you would have some weight on your back to increase the strength. You would also do some seated calf raises and standing calf raises to target your soleus and your calf. In third phase, it's to build up your peak strength. It is to build up your bulletproof ankle. And you would start this at almost 5+ week. You would significantly increase the amount of load that you are doing, and you can reduce the number of repetitions to 8. So this will help in making your fascia resilient to high activities of walking and running. Throughout all these 3 phases, I would also suggest you add some big toe extensions, which would help in engaging the fascia, because if your big toe movement is or mobility is lacking, your windlass mechanism would not be activated, and this would lead to overloading of your fascia, and your arch would not have its natural support which it needs. So the goal of the modern rehab isn't to protect your foot, but it is to make it strong and invincible. Stop resting and start loading. If you want a structured roadmap, check the link in the description below. So until then, see you in the next video. Take care.